Hi, thanks very much for joining me again. This video is going to be about, at the time of doing it, new stainless steel large bottle opener kit. I think the code is BOT9 for this one. It's pretty big. I think it's 46mm across there. So you need a fair sized chunk of wood to do this one, but the principle of fitting it is pretty straightforward. You cut a hole underneath to allow the bottle cap to go in here, and a rebate to fit the disc in, and you then screw it in place. You do need a fair sized chunk of wood. So the chunk of wood I've got today is not particularly long, about 75 mils long, and it is 55 square. So bearing in mind that the disc itself is 46, it's not got a lot of extra. I've marked, as you'll see, the ends. I'm going to turn it between centres just so I can mount it on a chuck, on dovetail jaws on a chuck in a minute, so we can look at cutting the right size hole here. Let's get on with it. So having cut it roughly round to the right size, I can now look to install it in my chuck jaws. We'll try tightening it instead of loosening it, it might help. Let's just make sure we've got that in the middle. Right, let's pop a centre finder in and I'll be able to check that we've got our little mark in the middle, and it isn't anywhere near the middle at the moment because I've started with a rather odd shaped piece of wood. Right, let's go loosen that off, get that in the centre, then we can tighten that up and fit it. And then we know we're in the centre at this end, which is where we're going to cut and drill. Right, what we now need to do is look at the construction of the kit itself. So you'll see it's pretty straightforward. We need to cut a rebate to fit this disc in. However, we also need to cut a hole behind it, otherwise you simply won't get your bottle cap in there. So the first hole we need to do is just on the outside of this piece here. And that size is, I've no idea, but I'm going to measure it with my faulty calipers that keep going wrong. Right, I think basically if we look at 27, we look at 30, can we get away with 25, I wonder? We might do. Let's try 25. If I start with a smaller hole, I can make it bigger. If I start with a big one, I can't make it smaller again. So we're going to start with 25mm, and I'm going to use a Forstner bit in my Jacobs chuck to do 25. But before I do that, I'm just going to flatten that end off, make sure it's absolutely perpendicular for us drilling into. Right, now all I've got to do is find a 25mm drill. 34, 38, 30, 26. Oh, I'll tell you what, I've got a 26. I'm going to try that one. You can, of course, you don't have to use a Forstner bit, you can of course just cut it by measure and cut by hand, but I'm going to just try it this way. I'll shut my drawer so I don't get it full of shavings. I think I'll take that out of the way as well. Right, I'm going at around about 600 to 700 RPM. Don't have to go too deep, I'm just gone in the depth of the actual drill itself, and we'll just hold that up to the there and see if that will do the job. That will indeed do the job. I reckon that's just about big enough there. So what we now need to do is cut another rebate to take the disc. Right, how should we do that? I'm going to use a big drill that I had a minute ago and I've put down. Bear with me while I delve into my drawers. Having delved into my drawers, I found a 45mm drill bit. As I said before, I've got lots and lots of drill bits because I have to test these. You might not have them, but you can just measure and cut by hand quite as easily. It might even be quicker than doing this, because I think I'm going to have to do this by hand afterwards as well. But let's have a go with this. Do you know what? 45mm is absolutely spot on. So I don't really need to do an awful lot more with that at all. That is absolutely ideal. All I need to do now is to start shaping this end before we look at what we're going to do with the other end. I'm now going to look at starting to shape this end before we look at turning it round. I'm being lazy. Now what we need to do, now we've started that, is look at mounting it the other way round so we can get to the whole thing and shape it. So what we need to do is somehow mount it so we can get to all the relevant bits. This depends on how you finish the kits. Now the discs themselves come as just a disc, but you can use an end cap which we sell separately. Here you can see a little stainless steel end cap on a 6mm dowel. Sorry, if I do that it'll refocus on it again. We sell these in now stainless steel, chrome, gold and natural brass colour. What these do, and I have to stress they're sold separately, is enable you to turn a kit that we're looking at today but between centres. It makes it so much easier and more pleasurable. From my point of view, you may alternatively you may prefer just to have a wooden end, but these are available in a whole range of things. Right, so what we've got to do now is look at turning this round, mounting it and turning it round. I think I'm going to use my end because quite often, particularly when there's a camera running, things can go slightly awry, shall we say. So I could, if I changed jaws and put some smaller ones on, mount that on pin jaws on there and then turn it. However, I'm then going to have to fight and turn really quite close to the I just don't like doing it that way. I'd rather spend whatever it is, 90p or a pound on a little end cap. They come in packs of 4 just to make my life much easier, and it adds a bit more decoration to the product as well. So now when I've cut my dowel in half, because you don't need one this long, it'll pop in that hole there with its little end cap, and I'm now going to turn this between centres. What we now need to do is look at drilling the holes in the end and actually possibly fitting this piece. It depends if my dead centre will go back through, because I haven't finished this yet. I'm going to drill the holes to fit this, and then I'm going to put it back on the lathe. I can do that because I'm turning between centres. If you're on a one-ended kit, you won't be able to do that, because the minute you take it off and put it back on, you'll never get it in the same place again. But that's what I'm going to do now. So now let's look at putting the screws in. Might sound straightforward. You'd be amazed how many people don't get this right. I have put my disc, let me leave it out to show you. Got my disc, there's my hole. I popped it in, it actually clicks in place, which is nice. I've got a very, very sharp awl. I am going to mark right in the centre of that hole where the drill bits need to go. And the other thing to mention is, if you make a mess of this, don't panic too much. You can take that out, you can turn it around and put two other screw holes in the right place. But you can see I've got the space underneath there now to allow the bottle cap to go in. I've got those two things. The next thing I need to do, apart from actually get this disc out, is to measure my screw. Now these small screws, let's do that so the thing focuses. Using my calipers, these particular screws are 3mm, so I need to drill a 2.5mm pilot hole. Basically, these small screws, the pilot hole needs to be 0.5 mm less than the diameter of the thread. So what did I say? I've forgotten now. Too much talking and too little thinking. 3mm, 3mm thread, 2.5mm pilot hole. PH2 screwdriver, not posi drive, Phillips head screwdrivers. These particular screws, PH2, lots of ours are PH1, but these ones are PH2. And the other screw that I can't find anywhere, here we go. Go in, no problem at all. Like so, and that will not come out. Now we can look to finish. Now I'm not sure whether my dead centre does fit, but it's I think it might be touching the dead centre slightly. Is it or isn't it? Let's have a look. Just going to turn it on, lock it off, just going to turn it on very slowly. That's fine. So that's gone back on. You can see there isn't any movement on there. So I can now do my finishing off on there. Depends how deep you drill that first hole as to whether that goes back in. But you can take the metal bit off and pop it back on and finish this off, if that makes sense. So lastly, but by no means leastly, I'm going to pop my little end cap on there on the dowel, and I'm just going to pop that on the top, and that just finishes it off quite nicely. It looks like a little salt and pepper pot, but it's actually obviously a bottle opener. There we go. And you can obviously do whatever you like. You don't have to have these are optional, these stainless steel ends. I just think it makes turning a bit more fun. That is it. So there we go, that's all done. That's, as I say, this is an optional extra. These aren't included with the kits. All you get with the kits is just the disc, but I just find it just eases finishing it off. There we go, that's the finished little kit. I'm quite happy with that, and I would think if you sell stuff at craft fair, having that sat on the stand, people might be quite intrigued as to exactly what it is, and that's half the thing. Generate some interest, and then show them something hopefully quite useful. I'll pop a video of that up at the end. Not a video, I'll pop a still of that up at the end, and you'll see that one on the website as well. Until next time, thanks very much for watching. Enjoy your workshop, whatever you do, and do it safely. Until next time, bye bye for now.